Tonight, growing hope in the Middle East as the Israel-Hamas ceasefire holds. Hundreds of thousands celebrate in Tel Aviv ahead of the expected hostage release.
I hope it's the end of a journey of 2 years.
As families in Gaza return home to devastation. Facing deportation from Canada.
I don't wish this on my worst enemy.
Why this family says they didn't get a fair chance to present their case to Ottawa. And remembering the life and legacy of Oscar winner Diane Keaton.
I like him. I've always liked him, and I'm just a turtleneck kind of gal.
A celebration of the unique style and quirky charisma of the late Hollywood icon.
Well, bye.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. The countdown is on in the Middle East, with hostages still in Gaza expected to be freed Monday. With the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in its second day, many in the region are already marking this moment in history. CTV's Heather Wright has our coverage tonight from Tel Aviv.
For 2 years, this has been the place where Israelis have come to grieve, to pray, and to celebrate.
Great moment. It's wonderful.
Hostage Square was packed as U.S. Special Envoy to the region, Steve Witkoff, joined U.S. President Donald Trump's daughter and son-in-law on stage. The crowd often breaking out into chants of "Thank you, Trump," leaving little doubt in who they credit for this ceasefire deal.
To Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
This is the third ceasefire during this 2-year war, but people are cautiously hopeful.
I hope it's the end of a journey of 2 years.
Saturdays at Hostage Square are often busy, but typically not like this. Police say there are more than 400,000 people here tonight.
We all standing here. My mom and my aunt been here for a lot of times, and I hope this is our last time standing here and praying they're all coming back.
In Gaza, thousands have been making the agonizing trip back to their homes. We are tired, really tired, this man says. Thank God we are going back. But for many, little of their old life remains. There is no one left for me, this man says. All my brothers are gone. Death is better than the struggle we are in. Today, a group of people surrounded an aid truck in Han Yunis, a chaotic scene as people desperately tried to get food and other supplies. Under the terms of the ceasefire, aid will begin flowing over the next few days, with the hope that 600 trucks carrying food, medicine, and other supplies will soon enter the enclave every day. But uncertainty remains, with reports that Hamas is trying to reassert control in certain parts of the Strip.
President Trump will travel to Israel on Monday, what's being described as an in-and-out visit. He will address Israel's parliament, the Knesset, and then go to Cairo, where he will formally sign this ceasefire deal. Heather.
Thank you, Heather. CTV's Heather Wright in Tel Aviv for us tonight. One of 6 Canadian activists who was on board a humanitarian aid flotilla detained by Israeli forces has returned home. Indigenous activist Miswasan Agnew was greeted by family, friends and supporters after landing in Toronto this afternoon. She was among a group of pro-Palestinian activists on board a flotilla that attempted to break Israel's naval blockade and bring aid to the Gaza Strip. Canada Post workers ended their nationwide strike this morning. Instead, the union is starting rotating job action, focusing on rural areas where the impacts hit hardest. It's a small reprieve for those who rely on the mail carrier, but as CTV's Colton Prale reports, it doesn't mean they're in the clear.
They may be long-standing rivals, but for these dogs and the people who take care of them, the return of the postman is much-needed relief.
Last year it was about $250,000. The most significant part of that is it's right toward year-end when we're really counting on people to be generous.
Today, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers is shifting from a nationwide strike to a rotating strike. hoping to help charities and businesses that rely on mail delivery but haven't been receiving checks.
The reason for the shift is to take the pressure off the public.
Canada Post says mail service will begin again next week, but warns disruptions and delayed deliveries are possible.
It's not just the checks coming back in from our generous donors that we're losing, it's also the people who don't have that reminder to go online and make the gift that they might normally make.
The Crown Corporation is blaming over 170 days of strike action, including 2 national strikes, for a loss in business. But since 2018, Canada Post says it's lost more than $5 billion. Last month, the federal government announced changes to delivery timelines, community mailboxes, and rural post office closures in an effort to slow the losses.
I believe that there is a deal to be had between the parties. It's going to take the government to walk back what they've announced.
A government official tells CTV News in a meeting with the union Wednesday, the minister responsible for Canada Post said Ottawa won't drop its changes. And after nearly 2 years of negotiations, those impacted by the strikes are just hoping for a resolution.
It's just that uncertainty of not knowing what's going to happen.
The latest offer from Canada Post came last week. The union calls it a major step backwards, but is yet to officially respond. Heather.
Colton, thank you. CTV's Colton Prale in Ottawa. The ongoing trade war has Canada searching hard for new markets. China is high on that list, though relations have been frosty. But now China may be ready for a relationship reset. CTV's chief political correspondent Vashi Kapellos sat down with the Chinese ambassador to Canada and joins us now with more insight. Vashi, what can you tell us?
Heather, there's been so much back and forth on this. There's even been a trade mission. Saskatchewan's premier, alongside the parliamentary secretary to the prime minister, went to China to see if there was some sort of deal to be had, but nobody would be specific. Like, if we remove the tariffs on Chinese EVs, does that mean that China will no longer have tariffs on canola? This interview is the first time I have ever heard an official in either China or Canada explicitly say that if that happens, China will take away the tariffs that they have in place on Canadian agricultural products. Have a listen.
So if Canada removes the unilateral unjustified tariffs on Chinese products, China will also reciprocate accordingly. And if the EV tariffs are removed, then China will also remove the tariffs on the relevant products of Canada.
Now, I also asked the ambassador about another hot issue in this country, the possibility of another pipeline to the west coast of British Columbia. There's a ton of political debate over whether or not that should actually happen. But what it would do, from a logical perspective, is send more oil to China. The question is whether China actually wants that extra oil, and the ambassador indicated there is room for it. Heather?
Vashi, thank you. And you can watch Vashi's exclusive interview with China's ambassador to Canada tomorrow on CTV's Question Period. Getting oil to market is certainly a pressing issue for Ottawa, and Keystone XL pipeline was a topic of discussion between the Prime Minister and U.S. President when they met earlier this week. CTV's Jeremy Sharon looks at what reviving that project could mean for Canada.
A pipeline project that began more than a decade ago could have a rebirth on the horizon. An expansion of the existing Keystone pipeline meant to move more of Alberta's crude oil to refineries in the U.S. Gulf Coast, but the Keystone XL pipeline project never made it online. Met with criticism from environmental advocates, the Obama administration shut it down in 2015. Donald Trump revived it in 2017, only for Joe Biden to halt the project again on his first day in office in 2021.
Third time could definitely be the charm, and charming not just for friends of the oil patch, but also for Canada-U.S. relations, possibly.
According to sources who spoke with CTV News, the pipeline expansion was raised in the context of getting relief from steel and aluminum tariffs when Prime Minister Mark Carney visited Trump this week.
If we can use it to our advantage in a discussion with the U.S., I think that's a good thing, but I see a lot of steep barriers to getting it actually built.
Chief among those barriers, financial risk, says this expert who thinks guarantees from the U.S. government would be required. The Alberta government and TransCanada, who operated the project, lost billions in 2021 when it was cancelled.
Canada has the potential to increase its existing oil sands production perhaps by as much as 1 million barrels a day.
This former energy executive who worked on the original Keystone development says the economic boost for Canada could be significant, but it would require
fundamental adjustments by the Carney government with respect to existing Canadian climate and carbon policy.
The Prime Minister has signaled environmental targets and requirements are key for any new project of national interest. But Friday, he wouldn't firmly commit to keeping the emissions cap.
Is there a way that the province of Alberta, the industry, can provide the Prime Minister and his team with that certainty that's not going to compromise the likelihood of meeting our climate change targets?
This project could also face public backlash for increasing Canada's reliance on the U.S. at a time when Ottawa says it's looking to diversify its markets. Jeremy Sherrill, CTV News, Ottawa.
A Nigerian family facing deportation tomorrow is sharing their story, fearing violence and possibly death if they're forced back home. CTV's Kamal Karmali on the concerns they didn't get a proper chance to present their case for staying on Canadian soil.
This is a day this Ontario family says is the worst day of their lives.
I don't wish this on my worst enemy.
Through tears and heartbreak, trying to find the strength to pack up everything they own, because this day is their last in Canada. They're set to be deported Sunday.
I never, ever dream this can come.
Taiwo Fayemi and her 9 children, 6 biological and 3 stepchildren, are from Nigeria, a country plagued by violence. They crossed the border from the U.S. to Canada 3 years ago, seeking asylum, after she says her husband was kidnapped, targeted because he's a politician for the country's opposition party.
Luckily, he managed to escape later, but because of the situation, the family who was vacationing in the United States in that time could not ever go back to their home.
Taiwo began her career in Canada as a personal support worker. Her kids started building their lives here in Fort Erie, Ontario. In that time, they say Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada rejected their refugee claim, stating there wasn't enough evidence to support they would be in danger back home. The family says they've applied to stay on humanitarian grounds, but are still being deported before their application is heard. Part of the family's claim is that one of the stepdaughters is battling leukemia in a hospital in Windsor, Ontario, and needs her family's help.
One of us has to stay, but they're not letting anybody stay to be able to donate their bone marrow for her.
IRCC has not responded to CTV News for comment. For this family, though, any response might be too little too late. Already saying goodbye to their friends that became like family, not knowing what life-threatening dangers they could face.
Everything bad. I feel so terrified.
When they have to fly back home and leave their new Canadian community behind. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Fort Erie, Ontario.
A chilling update tonight to an explosion at a Tennessee munitions plant where authorities now say there were no survivors.
We're dealing with explosions, and I would say at this time we're dealing with remains.
Before and after satellite images show the sheer devastation of the blast that happened Friday at the plant 100 kilometers south of Nashville, the cause of the explosion is still under investigation. Tributes are pouring in for Diane Keaton following news that the Oscar-winning actress has died.
Oh, well, la-di-da, la-di-da, la-la.
In a career that spans 6 decades, Keaton portrayed women who were intellectual and neurotic, quirky and complex. The versatile leading lady might be best known for her Oscar-winning performance in the 1977 comedy Annie Hall, as well as the wife of a mafia kingpin in the 3 Godfather films.
Now that you're so respectable, I think you're more dangerous than you ever were.
She won over a new generation of fans with Something's Gotta Give, First Wives Club, and The Father of the Bride series.
Your father and I, we're going to have a baby.
And at the age of 75, she made her music video debut for Canadian superstar Justin Bieber's song Ghost.
I miss you more than life, yeah.
Diane Keaton was 79. Coming up after this break. Has this national park reached a tourism tipping point? Plus, how postseason success has Canadians catching Blue Jays fever. Canada's national parks offer some of the most breathtaking natural beauty, but a surge in visitors to Banff is turning paradise into a problem of gridlock, with overcrowded hotspots feeling the strain. CTV's Kathy Lee on what's being done to help ease the chaos.
A timeless character in the town of Banff, this century-old home is a charming link to a simpler time. And from its weathered porch,
I sit here and watch the cars go by.
Anita Batram, who's lived here since 1984, has had a front row seat to the town's transformation into a bustling tourist hotspot.
I don't go up and walk on Main Street because it's elbow to elbow.
The town of 9,000 gets about 4.2 million visitors a year.
We're visiting from a place in Australia called Goulburn.
Last year we had record vehicles come into the town site at 6.7 million vehicles, and this year we are trending about 6% above that.
Several factors likely contributed to the uptick, including free entry to national parks with the Canada Strong Pass, tariffs, a strong U.S. dollar, a relatively smoke-free summer, and all the buzz from social media. It's not just the town feeling the congestion. Because of it, only bus shuttles are allowed at Moraine Lake, which is a mode of transportation strongly recommended for Lake Louise.
The parking lots were full, and then all of a sudden, parking was starting to spread out on the road. At some point, emergency vehicles were not able to go up there.
For those two popular lakes, as well as Lake Minnewanka and Banff, Parks Canada is developing a visitor use management plan for each area to manage the strain. But after living here for so long, Batram says the crowds are the price of paradise.
It's fine. I accept that I live in a tourist town.
And that a gem like Banff is not just a place to live, but a place to share. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Banff, Alberta.
Still ahead tonight, how a nurses' union is hitting back against overcrowding in hospital hallways. We have a follow-up to a story we shared with you last weekend about an overcrowded Saskatoon hospital treating dozens of patients in the hallway. The province's health authority pointed to a seasonal surge as part of the cause, but as CTV's Alison Bamford reports, healthcare workers say it's routine practice.
It's a real eye-opener.
Dennis Desmarais is back home after his week-long stay at Saskatoon's Royal University Hospital, a stint that started in the emergency department.
The things that went through my mind was, I'll be seen shortly, I'll be seen shortly, I'll be seen shortly.
But he wasn't. He says he waited 24 hours before seeing anyone and spent another 2 days receiving treatment in a hallway.
There's just bed after bed after bed after bed.
Late last month, a viral video showed RUH hallways crammed with patient beds. Family members that spoke to CTV News raised concerns about patient privacy and sanitation.
Capacity challenges.
When addressing the video last week, the Provincial Health Authority pointed to several compounding factors, including high patient volumes, complex cases, and seasonal flu. Now, healthcare workers are saying that's misleading.
You know, as a public health nurse, I understand the flu cycle quite well. And unless the flu started many years ago and hasn't stopped since, then I think that's a false narrative.
The head of the Saskatchewan Union of Nurses says he visited RUH in the spring. Back then, he says patients were already being treated in the hallway.
And nothing's changed. It's been like this for years now.
The Nurses Union says decreases in home care, long-term care, and rural ER access are funneling patients here. In a statement to CTV News, the Health Authority stood by its reasoning for the current capacity pressures and said in the last 2 weeks there's been a drop in the number of ER patients waiting for beds, but that number is still well above the 3-month average. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
The growing hunger crisis in this country is more evident during the holidays as Canadians struggle to feed their families. CTV's Sarah Plowman on how food banks are coping with the demand this Thanksgiving weekend.
Potatoes might be a Thanksgiving staple, but not everyone can afford them, and food banks feel it.
The demand is still higher than it's ever been.
In Fredericton, lines for help keep getting longer, but the need hasn't spiked as dramatically as in recent years. About 40 minutes north of Fredericton, at this food bank in Stanley, it used to help 20 families a month 7 years ago. That's now quadrupled.
We have families, seniors, singles, couples. We have clients now that were donors a few years ago.
Last year's hunger count showed food banks experience more than 2 million visits a month, the highest ever. A third of the clients were children, 18% were people who have a job.
And that's really just a representation of how challenging the economy and the cost of living crisis is right now.
Food Banks Canada applauds Ottawa's move to spend on housing, but wants to see the Canada Disability Benefit increased.
We know people that live with disabilities face higher rates of food insecurity than the rest of the country.
Despite the challenges, food banks say they are here to help and want to. But fundraising, grants, and donations are always needed.
We can't afford to sink. Like there's no other option for the clients that are out here.
Managing the best they can as the number of those in need keeps growing. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Stanley, New Brunswick.
Still ahead, baseball business. The fan frenzy from coast to coast as the Jays chase baseball's big prize. Fans across Canada are catching Blue Jays fever, even on the East Coast, where loyalties are somewhat divided among Red Sox and Yankees fans. But with their postseason success, the Jays are surging in popularity. Here's CTV's Paul Hollingsworth.
Got him! As the Blue Jays continue their postseason surge,
they're pretty fun to watch.
Manager John Schneider says he's aware the entire country is watching every pitch.
The sixth inning with the bases loaded and nobody out and Aaron Judge hitting, you feel like people in Nova Scotia want to, come murder you.
The Blue Jays undeniably have a strong following in Nova Scotia.
I think it brings the country together from coast to coast.
This die-hard Red Sox fan is so whipped up, he's put aside his Boston allegiance and is now cheering for Toronto.
They beat the Yankees anytime anybody can beat the Yankees. It's great for a Red Sox fan. And plus, being Canadian, we'd like to see the World Series come back to Canada.
Even Nova Scotia's most famous and revered athlete, Sidney Crosby, took time this week to remind people how hard he is cheering for the Blue Jays.
Pretty hard not to. Obviously it's pretty much a whole country cheering for them.
This pub in downtown Halifax,
it's electric,
expects business to be booming. It will be packed on Sunday night when the Blue Jays play Seattle.
It's almost like when Team Canada plays, where everyone in here wants to support the Jays and be on their side and see them succeed.
And they are going to the American League Championship Series. And millions of fans across Canada, including many on the East Coast, will be cheering the Blue Jays on. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
The Jays fever. That's our newscast for this Saturday night. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.